Beep, bop, boop. All right, round two. We're live. Round two. So I polished a little bit where we left off. The time registration form thing is where we enter numbers. If you haven't seen the previous live stream, yeah, like I'll give you a very TLDR. Working on a little project in ReScript. I am organizing a physical running race and having a little website for that. So the running race, there's a parkour, and we have a start and finish at the same place. The thing is, we want to track how what time all the attendants, all the participants arrived after the race. So we just want to do some hacky manual friendly neighborhood time tracking. We don't have anything fancy like GPS chips or whatnot. They are basically all the participants are going to have a number. They're going to walk into the number. The idea is that we have somebody with a mobile application. Well, it's just going to be a website, but responsive. People come from this side or this side. We spot them. We say like, hey, I saw number 201. You enter that. That updates the database. We're using Firebase for that. So if we 201, so we're in this case 101. Anyway, 101 is added, status is seen, so that's fine. And you basically want to double check that, status is seen. At the moment they actually cross the finish line, you want to say like, okay, and now that's their official time. So you want to have some sort of a timestamp at this flag. And what we have here is that we updated all the ones that we've seen with a status flag. And now we're going to query the ones with seen. And what we want to do is have a little dashboard overview. Over here, we'll have a new tab, and then we see like a bunch of entries, the numbers of the runners that has been seen. And then we click on those to like sort of over here, somebody else just submits those numbers. It is a little bit too chaotic to like enter the numbers in the correct order. So it would be interesting if you just have a dashboard with a couple of buttons, and then you can easily just bam, 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 click on those numbers and, register the time at the right moment. So that's the main idea. I polished this a little bit in regards to the last stream. I added a recently added number. So this is a set of numbers that was recently added. Once we saved our, updated our document in this Firestore database, I do this set recently. I just create a new set with a single number. I union the sets, and after like 10 seconds, I remove it by set difference. This is just a binding on the JavaScript set method. So these are rather new methods on the set object. This definitely will run in the latest Chrome, probably not in old IE. But TLDR, there were no ReScript bindings, so that's where the the few bindings that we need ourselves have been added. Something else I put in the last time is like an input ref. So the moment you enter a number, like 101, the cursor's back into the input field, and you can easily, you can just easily go in and press the next number, etc. So that's the idea. Like on a mobile phone, you want the keypad to keep on, to open again the moment you entered a number. For that, I also put input mode numerics, which I hope is like give me the big numbers kind of screen on your mobile phone. I can't really test that with an emulator, so I'll have to do a live test with that later on, whether that holds. But these are some tricks, like a pattern, only use numbers, so that might force the mobile phone to really show the large numbers when you would dial a cell phone number. That is recently added, and I probably wanna do a little bit of a query. So right now I am doing a where clause of where the runner equals the number, and I probably wanna update that. So our runner has a status, the runner state, which is unknown, seen, or finished, and I probably do want to check whether the state is unknown. Like, we just want to query for runners where we have no idea where they went. Because at a certain point you would start having them finished. If somebody here enters a number that's already finished, that's going to be overwritten, so we really don't want that. So we'll have to be careful with that. So in this registration thing over here, we basically put in another where clause, which makes it an and. We're going to say, well, pretty much the same thing here. Where the runner is status equals, and now we want that seen, and we'll need that as a string, and that's going to be domain that seen around the domain module. Would expect this to work. However, the subtyping thing, how was that again? This only works when all of these are parameterless. So that might be a bit of a problem. Seen is not a subtype string. Like, I think this is a limitation of ReScript, so in essence, I'll probably want unknown even. But this doesn't quite work, and I'll couple of options, I guess. Like, I could create a cost function that just does that. Like, let's cheat and then use that value as a subtype of string. Like, let's say something like status as string, which would have a main status. String, not function but an external. This is percentage identity. It works like that. I can probably not just do that inside of React. Probably be something more like that. Yep, there we go. And then if we look at the time for, we'll see that it did use the string unknown. It just blindly accepts what we have. But that's kind of what we're after, because the status will, for other people, either it is unknown or the property is empty. So that's also that is a bit of a gap, because right now my input isn't all that good. So there either is a status or there's not. So let me maybe just quickly update that to unknown, and then 101, saving all here, 101. That did change again to seen, so that's good. But in essence, I can only really pull this off once I know that my seed data is fine. So can do over here, I sort of bump into this rather often, that you kind of want to change something to all your data. Well, basically run some sort of migration and have this update script for that. I can sort of run this as an administrator with a service account key that sort of connects to the Firebase account. What I'm basically going to do here is that get all the collection of runners as a query, promise, make some promises from that. And in this case, like I updated the field, I removed the order ID, remodeled that a little bit a while ago. And do over here is say our runner dot status, and that would be the main dot. And this is really, yeah, there's a subtle difference between the Firebase code that runs in the browser. This is really targeting the Node Firebase SDK. Looks very similar, but is still different and can be a little bit head scratching. Well, TLDR, I'm just going to go to my script directory, run the updates script. It says migrated. So right now, all these have status unknown, and that kind of solves the problem. And I definitely need to do this in production as well. But, you know, all in all, it's fine. So I had this 101. Everyone was updated again. Let's do 101. And then over here, when we do 101 again, it sort of does a fetch, and well, basically it just won't have returned anything anymore from the query because the second where clause wouldn't have matched. So the get docs over here, query snapshot, we could actually weekly write that out. So query snapshot dot empty. If it is empty, then I basically want to do console log of empty. Do something like empty full number. Okay, so 101, and I can see it's empty for 101, but then it doesn't show for 102. 102 is added, etc. So this is now legit, but there's definitely a to-do in terms of ensuring your data is fine. And that's like the difficult thing about Firebase. You really need to think about what data do I want on my screens, and you really need to know all your use cases ahead of time. Otherwise, you do run into these like migration scenarios, which isn't the end of the world, but is always a little bit, yeah, this easily happens, and I feel like it's difficult to put everything in a consistent state where you still want to type all the things. Anyway, that's a lot of good stuff for the I've seen the runner part. So again, imagine we have some folks over here. Multiple people can sort of register. Like if they enter a number and we don't find anything, we just don't show anything, and that's sort of fine. And then eventually over here, we need to press a second button that actually does change the state to the, okay, you're now registered. And that's going to be on my little admin page over here. So when I go to the organization component, which sort of powers all this, I'll need to have a little new nav entry here. I'll call this time registration. So, and over here, this is using the ReScript router. So ReScript, the bindings for React come with a sort of a router kind of thing. And I can do this ReScript React router, use URL, and then I'm gonna basically check the hash. And, you know, the hash will then show the correct components based on this. This isn't perfectly typed or anything. I just, you know, write these things twice and don't really think much anymore about it. So it's going to be fine. Time registration. We don't have that component just yet. So let's add that. We'll need a new ReScript file. There we go. at React components, let May, no props. Say hello. There we go. So there's our hello. Who that all works. That's fine. One other thing I do want to mention about the other time registration form, I did add a signature file because hot module reload and then React fast refresh and those kind of things, they really only work when you have one default export or like just export the React components. So you want all the other stuff to be private, and the easiest way or the only way to do this is with a signature file. The nice thing though is that the tooling is able to like generate that for you, and we'll most likely do that in a bit for the time registration as well. Okay, now the tricky part. I actually need to subscribe to any changes of runners that all of a sudden become in the scene status. And I'll do a use effect hook for that, where I'll return none for now. There's no cleanup. Use effect requires an array, so I think I can do something like use effect 0, which doesn't take anything. So this is a one-time deal. I'll need to get a hold of my runners collection, which I'm just gonna steal over from this file. This was to run runner overview. This has now my runners collection. And again, this all still works, but now runners collection is also exported. So what you wanna see over here is that it's going to be part of the export down below. We actually don't want that. So what we can do is this create interface file for implementation, and then ensure that we only have the React components, and now all the other stuff is private. So this is typically a one-time thing. You don't really have to mess with the signature file. It's very stable. I think it would be nice if everything was just private by default and you use like an export keyword that sort of resolves the to fileness of it, but it doesn't bother me tremendously. Okay, so this is our runners collection. We'll need to create a runners query where we say that we do query, we take the runners collection and we add some constraints. So again, we'll have to say something like where runner is seen in this case. So if we circle back to what we had in the form, we had some where clause like where the runner is unknown. So we'll have to do something a little bit similar. And get that over here. Okay, state as a string. Yeah, I'm just gonna probably just duplicate that as well. So yeah, fair critique that this probably could be as like a separate file kind of thing, although I'm not overly bothered with it. We're seen, and now we just want to subscribe to like updates of this query. Like we can do that with another Firebase binding. So there is something called on snapshot, and then you pass it in a query and a subscriber, and it gives you an unsubscribe. And that unsubscribe is the thing we're basically gonna pass in as our use effect cleanup. So we subscribed to changes to the snapshot, and then when the component were to unmount, we do the unsubscribe call on that. So just to clean that up. The on snapshot thing has back documentation again. So on snapshot. That seemed like the default thing there. Let me have a link to my bindings. It's always useful for later. It has a next. Let's start with the next. So it has query snapshots to data and file there. Duration. Next would be Word document snapshot. And let's do like a console log and see if that initially gets on anything. There we go, because I sort of have a bit of a question. Will this show us anything initially? So it seems like it does. And this is now 2. If I were to add somebody new, and 4, doesn't seem like I'm getting. Maybe there is no 104. Can't really tell. Yeah, okay, there was no 104. So let's just try that again. Basically, we get the 2, we get a second lock because of the the component, because the URL changed, the component was mounted, unmounted, all that. There is 103. So let's try that. That was added over here, and when I go, I can see that it says 3 now. So the query snapshot tells us that the query is now returning 3 objects. And then I believe it's possible to get the get like the information on the snapshot itself, like which one was like added or updated or whatnot. But I'm not quite sure yet on that. So in essence, we know that we have our runners here, so we can think about getting buttons in place and then having an event listener to like a button click to then update these. Now the problem is that you imagine there are like a couple of people coming on and they all have different number. You don't really want stuff to jump around. If you have 3 buttons, you click the first one and then the second and the third sort of jump. So I'd definitely like to avoid that. So I'm not quite sure yet. I'm not just gonna basically put the query snapshot data, update that as my state. I probably want to do something a little bit more fancy, where I would have a type of coming runner maybe. So it should be like pending. So there's a number pending. There is a finished, and that finished is different from the state finished I'll have in the database. And I guess incoming runner you would have pending, finished, and empty as well. So basically you would draw some sort of a div just that displays nothing, but that just holds the space, and you don't really want to, like, you want to keep this in an array maybe, and then keep the empty spot, and then maybe when it's a convenient time have like a button and do like a manual cleanup of all the finished and empty, something along those lines. So let us create some states. I basically am going to call this cells and set cells. Maybe I'll have the type name difference. Use state. And I'm also a little torn whether, yeah, how how I want to do this. So I probably won't have something completely finished, but let's just assume that this is more or less like a queue, and we'll just basically deal with the cells, well, in our own little way. And then I'll sort of think about how much, do I want this to be a fixed thing? Uh, 5 is probably like a too low number, but I never, there's like about 100 people doing this running race, and they all sort of have very various time frames. So it's really like not everybody is going to finish at the same time. That's pretty logical for a race that's like 16 kilometers. So people are going to be spread all over the parkour, and then all of a sudden you just see somebody, and then you deal with that, and then like the spot eventually frees up. Um, so let's just start out with assuming that we'll never see more than 5 runners at a time. It's going to be fine for now. Okay. So I kind of want to render the cells. I probably want to slap this into like a diff. So you had like an ID in mind for some CSS. So it's called the same time registration. And yeah, let's just like render the cells. It's gonna be the most logical thing to do. I probably wanna do something like cell grids, where it's a little bit more breathing room. Go with cells. Uh, you do the array mapping, map index, runner index. Basically, last name of cell. You want to use the index as key. So key be inst string of the index. Fine. You want to do like a switch on what the runner is actually doing. So in this case, we don't really have anything yet, but let's just assume it's all empty, and empty can definitely be React null. Um, and we probably maybe the cell name also do something like that. So let's say class name and inner. Bugle that out. Go with a switch on runner. Don't care about the cases just yet. Empty. Maybe just go with cell and do React null. Good. Inner. With some probably go. This needs to be told that it's a React array. And I was thinking about some style. So yeah, this time registration, that's fine. And then let's just say each cell is 40 pixels and 80. I'm just really gonna do something for the empty. Just maybe give it order for now. That's for time registration. Probably want to like display flex. Put in a gap there. Spacing units I'm using. Yep. So more. Go. And you want these to wrap, so flex wrap, go. And then the clue is that if I press this one, it just, doesn't disappear and this jumps around. It just stays there and it's gonna, do a little bit, do a little bit of good stuff. So, I am basically receiving my snapshots over here. I can run over all the snapshots and see, walk over all the cells. If I see a cell that's no longer with us, I can update that to finish, although I can also just update to finish on click, so that makes maybe a little bit more sense. I can check, so if I don't have it as pending, or if I just don't have the cell at all, just put it in the next empty one, something along those lines. Or I could try. There was something in Firebase as well, which lets you know what really happened to it's maybe on snapshots. So there's metadata, local modifications, and oh, it's this thing. It's doc changes. So there's like doc changes, which gives you an array of doc change, and that probably there's this type doc change over here, and that's the one that's going to be like added, removed, modified. But I actually assume all these will just be added, like they turn up and added in the query, like from the query's point of view. It's just going to be, those are going to be added. So I don't know how interesting that is. I'll probably may want to do this little verbose first and then see if I can do something more clever. So we have the query snapshot that has documents. For each document, I can sort of check. Guess I can check is present. Maybe start there. Let's maybe say like new numbers, which is a set. And then the documents can do something like array for each. Query document snapshot. We'll need to get the data from the query document snapshot. Like a Firebase thing where you just can't, instantly get the data. You need to call like a .data function, and that gives them a little bit of a more control about whether do we need to fetch the data effectively from the server, or do we have something locally, and that's why it's just not a property, but it's a function, and there's a binding for that. So it just calls the data, does the send thing. We're just going to call data parentheses, and so this data should have like a number, and if if any of the cells contains a number, then I can't really, then I know I need to add it to like the new numbers. Yeah, let's just start there. So there's a self array dot. There's no array exists or contained in JavaScript, so there is a find. There's a find. And the find is returning an option, so we can just check if the option is sum or not. So the incoming runner. And then do a switch on the incoming runner. So if it's empty, let's run in a match. If it is, we can do this in one go if it's pending or finished. Okay, and data. Oh, right. Another interesting tidbit is that well, the number initially can be not assigned, so we'll also need to check that. Like, do a switch of the number. And we only really care about all of this if it's like null dot value number. Because originally the numbers are not assigned, so there's like a practical thing. I don't really know which physical numbers I can have to assign. So if there is a number attached to this runner, which is definitely going to be the case, but you kind of want to be sure. So we do as much that, and we just want to do option is sum. And if we do not have a match, then new numbers set at the snapshot. Let's look at console.log from that new numbers. And then you can see that the three numbers, original ones, are not present, and we want to fill the next empty slots. So, a little bit about this. We have an array with like 5 empties, so these just 3 can be assigned. I probably do want to do this in one go. But the question is a little bit set cells, all cells. And then you want to map the old cells, but also assign the numbers, sort of reduce it into that. Then it would be our set, I guess. And now we function that takes the set and incoming runner, and then should return still the old set. So reduce it and gonna do the trick probably. I'm drawing a bit of a blank how to do this because initially it's just easy. Like you add all of them to empty, don't even care that empty is a thing, and then just shove them in there. Um, but it's like if the slot isn't available, try the next one. And even if you can't, if the thing is going out of bounds, then you probably want to go and extend the size then, which is also somewhat an option. Basically, we have new numbers. We want to reduce the numbers. Yeah, maybe that works. Is there like a set for each list? So new numbers, read, and then you want to do like a set cells. I kind of want to do like a map and then map the new number if it's empty. And the thing is, it could also just stop with the mapping altogether because the single empty cell was replaced, so that's good. You would have, of course, multiple set cells calls. For each cell, you would have an equivalent set cell, so that, React is able to batch these things, so rendering wise we're safe, but it's not, just doesn't feel very right either, which is something. Which is something a little bit tricky to sort of pull off, like from an immutable point of view. You just go over that array and then update the value, but I kind of want to do like the set cells call and then keep things immutable. So, really struggling. Balance here. Could do an array and basically want to switch the incoming runner if it's empty you're interested in. So if it's empty, becomes a pending of the new number. Anything else? Place anything else that works, but then you're like overriding everything with same number. So this is not gonna work out. You can see that we just every empty cell became the first number, so that's not good either. And Also logging, it went with the first one, so that's not what we want. I don't know when our that MDM can I just get. There's no real order to it, but I just want a value of the set, so that's it's probably also not really possible. That's, I mean, the set leads like to for each here, but you basically want to have like one old cells to new cell thing and just get like boom, cells, old cells. If we like, they just create like a copy over here. Uh, yeah, that's always the case. Maybe we can just do spreading. Okay, that works. And all the next empty index. So if the next empty cell index is not -1, I would want to replace. I'm not quite sure how that would work in ReScript. So even though the array definitely is immutable, I don't think I can do some sort of assignment to this thing where I would say this is now pending of my new number. Like an F sharp, that would work, but I mean, that helps. That might help a little. Looking at React components, the state be pending. Okay, that works. That definitely doesn't solve all the problems, although I guess when it's finished, it can also just be replaced. And that will work. If it's pending, also works. And then I don't really get the bumps anymore, so that's good. And the finished can eventually go back to an empty. I kind of wonder whether I need the finished at all. Like, does it even make sense? Like, am I not going from this slot was empty? There's now a runner pending. I click the runner, the slot becomes empty because, well, the whole thing is saved. I guess I don't want to double click on that. So there's pending in terms of the runners coming in, there's pending save. So maybe I want something like saving, just so that I can't like double click on that to show disabled state maybe. So that's something. There's an empty cell. Let's go change that. So there's empty over here. Then go with pending. Cell pending. Dot. Um, well, actually, I kind of want a button here. So button. Also, there's this thing called interrupts, which is a special component, which just adds a bit of a nice button. This is just a model I had myself. What you want here is again React is just select the number here, the saving. Let's go with self saving and then just React saving. So we have the stuff here. That's a start. Boom, boom. Good. Probably style this a little better. That's fine. I click on these, nothing happens. It's also fine. And if I now were to see 200s, interesting. So 201 wasn't considered new. That is mildly interesting. Oh, interesting. All these numbers were found. So for some reason, the value uh, So is this supposed to be false for everything? And I'm not quite sure. This is something I'm definitely forgetting. Like in new numbers, we do like a set for each. We shove in the new numbers here, but then it definitely also requires a delete and with the and I want to ignore that. So notice that the query won't really give like a proper order here. That is fine because it, doesn't matter. This original thing really doesn't matter. Although I probably, for the initial, I could maybe sort the numbers. It might be useful, but might also not be. So I'm not quite sure about that. I'll definitely have to think about this whole thing, like, because when we now have 202, we have 200 again, and set just says everything. So I'm not quite sure what I'm missing, but it is not finding a match at all. Maybe I'm a little bit oblivious about what code was generated. Find. Hmm. An object. It is an object, and then tag. Yeah. Looks pretty good though. So it initially, like the initial set makes sense, but then the update, I would assume, it's unless I'm not really seeing the query. Uh, Maybe the way that the query on snapshot works isn't aligning with my thinking right now. Because right now I sort of reset the whole thing, so these three numbers still came out of that, which is weird. What is up with that? So these are still seen, which is definitely not what the updates. Just really updates the status to unknown. Promise all. Yeah, it's a little weird. little weird. Take all the runners, you take the field, put status, you put it on domain unknown. And this is going to be a little embarrassing, but I'm just going to run the same thing with node instead of button. And I might have a for fuck's sake moment. Yeah. Good old reliable button there. But I mean, it still doesn't quite explain absolutely everything, but let's go 101. Get the set. Yeah, get the set, so it's locked. Don't get empty. Okay, I'm having a little bit of brain overload. I'll take a break. This is I mean it's fun, but I'm definitely either not fully grasping how the query snapshot thing goes. And this probably is easier than I can think about right now, so that's just probably a easier way to deal with all this, and maybe a little bit too much mutable state, updating the range sets and all that, so probably not what we're really after. But yeah, still working on this, having a lot of fun, and see you next time.